Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You are here with Austin from Ohio, and today is Saturday, October 30th, 2021. A lot of stuff going on recently, and it just keeps going and going and going toward their ultimate goal, their great work, their whatever you want to call it, their New World Order, the Great Reset into the New World Order, whatever name you want to give it, the war on humanity, you could also give it that. And everything just keeps unraveling in this country, at least. I can speak to that because, well, I'm an American, so I can only speak for my fellow Americans, and it has gone completely over the hill, over the cliff, actually. Over the cliff, falling into an endless ravine of tyranny and just the level of disrespect on the local, state, and federal level is astounding. These people literally don't even know what it is to be respectful toward any other human being except, their colleagues, and then they don't even respect each other. It's really crazy, and people have lost their minds. They've lost their individualities. They've lost their sense of humanity. Really, they have. And you see it every single day. And that really comes from the rise of social media. It comes from the rise of, this instant gratification culture. Also, the apathy has been removed from these people, and the apathy has been placed in these people, and the empathy removed. That's how I should have said it. Because we live in a culture now where anything that is uncomfortable to see, we just throw it out of our minds, which many people think that is a good thing to do because you don't have to look at any of the uncomfortable things. But what they don't understand is that's a terrible thing to do because it literally turns your mind off from the happenings in the world. Just because you don't view any murders or anything and you don't look at it, does that mean murders aren't happening? No, it means you're just turning a blind eye to it. Pretty much where we are with this whole situation. People have either just disregarded the idea that there is a plan for a new world order, or they just think it's plain crazy, or they're just indifferent and don't really care until it comes down to affect them personally, which, of course, we all know that that's not a very good thing to do, honestly. And those of us who know what's going on, I don't know about you guys, but I literally feel like I'm going to be driven insane by all of this that's taking place. And not because of what the, evil people, bad people are up to, because that's expected. It's because of the good people that are standing idly by and just totally ignoring all of this, or they're falling into some kind of Hegelian dialectic trap or some other trap in general, and it's really past the point of no return. But without further ado, I will quit talking and we can just go ahead and get into this. So, this first piece comes from The Verge. FDA clears Pfizer C-19 vaccine for kids ages 5 to 11. What? Does nobody see a problem with this? They're just like, yep, no big deal. Whatever. There are 28 million kids in that age group in the U.S. The Food and Drug Administration authorized the Pfizer-BioNTech C-19 vaccine for 5 to 11-year-olds. Huh. Why that certain one? BioNTech. It's in the name. It's in the name. Opening up the shots to a new age group and ending an anxious wait for families of children in that bracket. Children are less likely to have severe symptoms if they contract C-19, but they could still catch and spread the disease. Cases and deaths in children peaked in September, which was the worst month for that age group. There were over 1 million new cases in that group. And they just come on here and say this stuff. The authorization makes vaccination, almost said the other one, available to 28 million new people in the U.S. Polling in September showed that around a third of parents say that they wanted to vaccinate their 5 to 11-year-old children right away after authorization. And we all know how these polls go. Nobody ever actually gets asked. They'll literally probably ask 3 people, and then one of them will say that they want to, inject their children as soon as the authorization is approved. That's 1/3. And you only ask 3 people, so we all know about how corrupt the polls are. None of us are ever asked for our input or anything like that. But all of a sudden you get a choice on November 3rd, don't you? The Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine is available for this group under an emergency use authorization. The FDA fully approved the shot for people 16 and older, but it's still considered an emergency use product for people 5 to 16. California says that it plans to add the C19 vaccine to the list of vaccines required to attend school, as soon as it has full approval for school-aged kids and teenagers. New York is considering a similar requirement. Oh, I can see how this is going to go. You don't want your kids to take this? You pull them out of school? Now you got a truant officer showing up at your house ready to arrest you if you don't send your children back to school and make them get this thing. And I wouldn't be surprised if they ended the homeschooling and all of that because, well, they're ending a lot of things, and I'm going to show you that as well here in the next one. I would not be surprised if they ended that because they would say, oh, this is prolonging the whole situation because there's unvaccinated children at home and they're being homeschooled and we need to get them out of there and get them back into the public schools. Nobody wants to go to your indoctrination courses or whatever. Your indoctrination centers that are eerily similar to a prison system. But we all know why that is, right? The 2 other C19 vaccines available in the U.S., the Moderna and Johnson & Johnson shots, are only available to people 18 years of age and older. The FDA was close to clearing the Moderna shot for adolescents between 12 and 17, but delayed the decision to take a closer look at the data around the rare risk of heart inflammation. Johnson & Johnson is still conducting trials in younger age groups. And that is the end of that one. I better get off this page before my app crashes, so we will move on. You guys ready for this one? This one comes to us from Vox. Supreme Court finally decides that the religious right asked it for too much. Maine's vaccine mandate for healthcare workers survives a challenge from religious conservatives. So if you just have the simple belief in God and that's it, all of a sudden you're a religious conservative, even if you might not lean one way or the other. And we know this mindset has adapted over time with the Hegelian dialectic upon Hegelian dialectic upon Hegelian dialectic, program to, get people to think this way. Like, for instance, if you say that you don't like the current president of the United States, all of a sudden you're a QAnon, Trump-supporting domestic terrorist, insurrectionist, all that other stuff. And we already know how all that works. Okay, Supreme Court handed down a brief order Friday evening. It is literally just one sentence long, denying relief to a group of Maine healthcare workers who object to the C19 vaccine on religious grounds. This means that nearly all workers in healthcare facilities licensed by the state must be vaccinated in order to keep their jobs. You understand how Supreme Court precedents work, right? They literally just removed religious exemption. And you could say, well, that's just for the state of Maine. No, because you can, whenever it comes down later down the road, however long it may be, a couple months, 6 months, 1 year, whatever, you have the same predicament with people trying to object on religious grounds. And they'll say, oh, well, in the case of someone v. someone in Maine, the Supreme Court ruled that, oh, wait, here it is, Does versus Mills. Oh, in Does versus Mills in Maine, the Supreme Court ruled that religious exemptions no longer apply. something that we've held near and dear to us in this country for the longest time, because freedom, right? It don't matter if you're a Christian, a Muslim, Jewish, Hindu, Buddhist, it don't matter. Precedents terrify me just because of the things that they can accomplish with these precedents that they're setting. Nobody ever likes to think into this, though. They just take it right, and they're like, well, that's what it is. Just gonna accept it because I don't care, because I'm lazy and I'm an American. Yeah, while this order, which also accompanied by a one-paragraph concurring opinion by Justice Amy Coney Barrett and a longer dissent by Justice Neil Gorsuch, it's quite brief, it is significant because it suggests that there may be some limit to the conservative majority's solicitude for religious conservatives. So all of you right-wingers who are all happy about, Trump appointing Neil Gorsuch and Amy Coney Barrett, well, guess what? They just removed religious exemption, something that you claim to hold near and dear, but I bet you'll, rationalize it in your head and then end up supporting it for some reason. Who knows? This is just crazy. All insane. Earlier in the situation, side note, if you're new here, within the past 3 months or so, I haven't said this recently, and you could probably ascertain from where I input the word, but whenever I say situation, I am talking about the C-19 situation. So just, if you ever hear me say that, that's what we're talking about. Unless I clarify otherwise, but most of the time I'm talking about the situation. So, earlier in the situation, the court handed down a pair of decisions that revolutionized its approach to religious liberty cases and granted churches and other houses of worship broad exemptions from public health orders intended to control the spread of C-19. The court's Friday evening decision in Dawes versus Mills, by contrast, appears to have been decided on the narrowest possible grounds. Though it is a loss for the religious right, it's not an especially significant one. Oh, okay. Well, if you're talking about this isolated case, no, not really. But it's the precedent. It's the precedent that was set. It's how these things work. Got to start turning some gears in your brains, folks. I'm not talking to my regular listeners because you guys are always on it. You guys, the emails that I get, you guys are on things before I'm on them sometimes. And I'm like, man, I literally do this I don't do it for a living. Might as well say that I do, though. But you guys are usually on a lot of things that I'm not, and I'm very thankful for that, and I'm very appreciative of every single one of you. Always. Don't ever doubt that. Maine requires nearly all healthcare workers to be vaccinated against C-19. It argues that this requirement is necessary because those workers are unusually likely to interact with patients who are vulnerable to the disease, and because the state's healthcare system could potentially be disabled. Too many healthcare workers are infected. The state does exempt a very narrow slice of healthcare workers, however. Those who risk adverse health consequences if they are vaccinated, such as people with serious allergies to the vaccine. The plaintiffs argued that religious objectors must be exempted from this requirement because the state also provided an exemption to people who could suffer health consequences if they are vaccinated. An argument that is at least plausible under the court's recent religion decisions. They were supported in an amicus brief by the Beckett Fund for Religious Liberty, arguably the nation's most sophisticated law firm representing religious right causes. In the dissent, joined by Justices Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito, Gorsuch essentially agrees with the plaintiffs, making the case for granting a religious exemption to the state's vaccine mandate. Quoting Tandon v. Newsom, 2021, one of the court's two recent decisions granting places of worship an exemption from certain public health rules, Gorsuch claims that the law is constitutionally suspect if it treats any comparable secular activity more favorably than religious exercise. Thus, under Gorsuch's approach, the state must exempt religious objectors because it has a single exemption again for people who could suffer serious health consequences if they receive the vaccine. Had Gorsuch's approach prevailed, it's likely that religious objectors would be exempt from nearly any law. Speed limits, for example, would typically exempt police, ambulances, and other emergency vehicles responding to an emergency. Even laws banning homicide typically contain exemptions for self-defense. Although in fairness, Gorsuch concedes that a religious exemption is inappropriate when the challenged law serves a compelling interest and represents the least restrictive means in doing so. So Gorsuch probably would not allow religiously motivated murder. And you see how they do this? They act like, oh, I oppose this, but in reality, they already knew what way it was going to go. That's the reality from it. The Supreme Court has been corrupted for decades. We have went over this when we went over the Illuminati's goals. One of their goals in the United States was literally to take over the most powerful court. It's one of their first things, which happens to be the Supreme Court. So, in my eyes, he allowed this to happen. In any event, Gorsuch's view did not prevail, though it is far from clear that it will not receive 5 votes in a future case. Though Justice Barrett joined a majority of the court in allowing Maine's vaccine mandate to take effect, her opinion, which is joined by Justice Brett Kavanaugh, clarifies that she did so on exceedingly narrow grounds. So, 2 out of 3 of the appointees that Trump appointed were for this, if I am reading this correctly. Where is the difference between the right and the left side? I don't see one. Actually, I've said this many times, both sides now exist on the left side of the actual spectrum, which has 2 extremes. All the way on the right, complete absence of government. All the way on, and this has nothing to do with the left and the right today. Nothing to do with it. This is just the actual spectrum, because you have to have 2 extremes. All the way on the right, total absence of any kind of control over anything. All the way on the left, total control over everything. In the middle is what we are supposed to be, which is limited government, maximum freedom, basically. Both sides now are favor, excuse me, you guys hear that burp come out? That was fun. Both sides now favor big government. That automatically puts you on the left side of the spectrum. Automatically. So both sides exist on the left side of the spectrum. Even if you're all the way on the right and you're a right-winger and you're a, staunch conservative, you still exist on the left side of the actual spectrum. You're still technically a leftist because you believe in big government. The right side just recently actually they were very accepting of troops on the street when it came to pummeling their political adversaries, who they view as their political adversaries. Useful idiots on both sides, of course, we all know this, but if you find yourself wanting armed troops on American soil to go after no matter who, you do not believe in freedom. Militaries, no matter what, are never supposed to operate on U.S. soil. I know they got around this by militarizing police departments and all this crap, which is still just... I know people say this as a figure of speech or whatever, but I literally do not recognize my homeland anymore. I can't. I walk outside, I look around, and I'm like, this isn't America. This isn't even America that it was 10 years ago. Shouldn't even be calling it America. We should be calling it the conglomerate of the New World Order, because that's what it is. Okay, so essentially Barrett argues that the Supreme Court has discretion to decide which cases it wants to hear. Of course it does. And her opinion suggests that she would exercise her discretion to not hear this particular case. That's consistent with an approach she laid out in 2017 essay, where she argued that Supreme Court justices who encounter an argument that they think is legally valid that would lead to disastrous results should exercise their discretion not to hear a case raising that argument. Okay, for now at least, the bottom line is that Maine's vaccine mandate is in effect. Public-facing healthcare workers will need to receive the C-19 vaccine unless they have a medical excuse. Again, it's not a huge loss for the religious right, but in its decision suggests that there is at least some limit to the court's willingness to carve out legal exemptions for religious conservatives. And they call it, it's not a huge loss for religious liberty. Yes, it is. You give an inch, they take a mile. Don't think about just this particular case right here. Think about the precedent that this sets for future cases throughout the entire United States. It's not that hard. Moving on. Hopefully my recording app doesn't crash here, but I will actually take this time in case it does. I will take this time to let you know that if it does crash and if the video stops anytime soon within the next 30-40 minutes, if you don't hear the Lord's Prayer, there's going to be a part 2. How about that? Okay, now that that's out of the way. So, Virginia, you especially, but the rest of us need to be on very high alert. Very high alert for false flags within the next 72 hours, because law enforcement warns ISIS cell could carry out attacks on Virginia shopping malls within the next 72 hours. Who called this? Oh, that's right, I did. Recently, in one of my videos, whenever that whole thing in Afghanistan was going on, and I said, watch, they're going to stop this, they're going to not talk about it for like 2 months, then all of a sudden you're going to hear about, ISIS, Al-Qaeda cells in the United States carrying out certain attacks, and we need to be prepared. And guess who's behind it? Homeland Security. CIA. This is literally just what that is. So, residents of Virginia, you need to be on high alert. And don't assume that it's ISIS. No, this is, of course, CIA-backed Homeland Security initiated false flag operations to terrify the public into giving up what remaining rights that we think we have. According to reports. What reports? Where? Threats to multiple malls and shopping centers could be linked to an activated ISIS cell. We're told the cell could carry out an attack within the next 72 hours. Fairfax County Police Chief Kevin Davis held a press conference saying his department is taking this very seriously. Yeah, I guarantee this guy's left in the dark. I guarantee he doesn't even know what's going on. Quote, because we received information with a public safety value added to it, it's our responsibility to have a greater presence and be more aware and ask the community to have their eyes and ears peeled for more suspicious activity. End quote. So they received information that this was going to happen. Who do they get it from? The higher-ups. Who do they get it from? Well, eventually, when you go up that ladder, it just comes from people within the State Department. That's literally what this is. Okay, Fox 5 asked Chief Davis what type of threat or suspicious activity they're hearing about, and he could not get into the specific details at this time. Quote, it is our responsibility to have a greater presence and be more aware. Oh, we already read that part. ISIS has been more active since the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan in August. Oh. Gee. That wasn't expected at all. Whatever. Officials say threats from the international terrorist group and Al-Qaeda are accelerating. The Department of Homeland Security's intelligence chief, John Cohen, said this week that the terror groups want individuals to act on their own. So-called lone wolf attacks overseas and at home. Oh, Department of Homeland Security? We knew they were going to be named in this article. Why not? Right now, we're seeing a dramatic increase in online activity by media operations associated with different Al-Qaeda elements in Islamic State, Cohen said. Now, this can also, evolve into, well, do you guys remember the Homeland Security Bulletin from a couple months ago? I believe that video is still up when I read it. Talking about ISIS-inspired or Al-Qaeda-inspired domestic terrorists carrying out attacks in America? Oh yeah, it's a big one. Big one. And that's the end of this here. So, people in Virginia, please be on the lookout the next 72 hours for anything out of the ordinary. You see suspicious vehicles, suspicious people acting suspicious, record it. Ask questions. Do you see people, like for instance, during the Boston bombing, there were people with, well, official-looking people with backpacks and suitcases that just so happened to be placing them in certain spots, and it was just very weird. Very weird. So, this could be nothing, but it could also be something. So, we need to keep an eye on this, especially if you live in Virginia. So, anybody on here, please do your due diligence. Please keep your eyes peeled. Not for, ISIS or whatever, but for false flag activity. Moving on. Boy, do these next couple articles that I have for you guys, boy, are they terrifying. A startup is creating digital human servants to work in the metaverse. Gee, what could go wrong? Digital workforce. While the metaverse might seem like a far-off dream, more fit for the pages of a Neil Stephenson novel than reality, some are already attempting to cash in the concept and even provide a digital workforce for it. Enter Soul Machines. Oh, interesting name. More like lack of soul machines, but whatever. A New Zealand-based company that says it's designing AI-driven digital humans for clients to use for things like customer service, promotional videos, and education. However, the company also has its sights set on the future. Co-founder Greg Cross saying that it plans to create a digital workforce for potential metaverse, according to The Verge. We all know that Facebook is changing their name to Meta, or the parent company, or whatever. We all know where this is going because we know about the Fourth Industrial Revolution. We've listened to Klaus Schwab for the past couple years go off on the Fourth Industrial Revolution. We know about the Internet of Bodies. We know about the AI. We know about the goal, and we know about all of it. This is to phase the human being out. If you are a regular human in this new world order, you will be looked at as a Neanderthal, a caveman that can't get with the times, a religious nut because you want to keep your soul and you want to remain as God created you. Quote, when we're playing a game, we adopt a certain persona or personality. When coaching our kids' football team, we adopt another persona. We have a different personality when we're at the pub having a beer with our mates. Cross told The Verge. As human beings, we're always adjusting our persona and the role we have within those parameters. With digital people, we can create those constructs. Humans OS 2.0. Oh, come on. Soul Machines, digital people run on a system that's creepily called Humans OS 2.0. It's an autonomous animation platform with a digital brain that allows the AI to learn from its interactions with real people. According to its website, a video of the OS in action shows the digital humans are ripped from the uncanny valley. Cross hopes that the AI will be able to fulfill the future needs of flesh and blood humans in and out of the metaverse or even duplicate them. Oh, remember when we were talking about this stuff, like even last year, 2 years ago, and even right now, actually? People called you crazy, told you to go put your tinfoil hat back on. Yeah, so, again, who was right? When are people gonna take off their blinders and say, hey, maybe these conspiracy theorists that we've been making fun of for so long and calling conspiracy theorists are actually people that are dug into this research and this line of work and are, trying to, help our situation as human beings. By the way, there's no need for you anymore. They got all this now. They can get rid of most, if not all of us, as the Georgia Guidestones want. And they can just say, well, we got these soul machines, human AI. and other AI humanoids that are, made by different companies. They have no use for us anymore. Therefore, they don't need us. They could justify wiping out a lot of people. And they wouldn't have to pay these things. They would be programmed to do the work. And they would never rise up, and they would never challenge the power of the so-called world power elite. Quote, at some point in the future, you might be able to create a digital version of yourself, or multiple versions of yourself, and they can go out and do stuff, make money for you, make money for your company while you're doing something else that's a whole lot more fun. Cross told The Verge. First of all, we already know that it won't be going down like this. You're not going to be able to sit at home and say, hey, digital Austin, go to work, go drive my forklift all day. I'm just going to sit here and do nothing. No, more like, oh, digital Austin, well, now we can get rid of real Austin because real Austin makes videos and, is a thorn in our side. And digital Austin kind of does what we tell him to do, so we're just going to go with this one. And I would play this video, but sometimes the sound will mess up on my recording app because it'll get confused. But I will link this for you guys in the description box so you can go and watch this video for yourself. And I have not watched it, so I can't tell you what it would look like or how these things are, but rest assured you could probably be certain that they are very, very human-like. Ethical quandary. Creating digital people with the ability to learn for the sole purpose of working for real humans brings up a whole host of difficult ethical questions. After all, if these digital people are indeed intelligent, no matter how artificial, having them work for us could be akin to a form of slavery or indentured servitude, especially if technological advances make them more intelligent as time goes on. Wrong. They don't have a soul. They're not real human beings with feelings. They're machines at the end of the day. So it wouldn't be a form of slavery or indentured servitude. Come on, they're not people that were born through parents by God. These are man-created robots, androids. Okay, let's see. It might also inadvertently create a new class structure of AI humans not unlike the video game Detroit Become Human. Cross, however, isn't deterred. Technology has always been used by most of us to do incredibly good things, and by few of us to do the things that aren't very nice or simply plain evil, he told the site. That is a reflection of the human condition. So, this is literally unreal. This is unreal. This is so beyond any scope. I don't even know what to say. I have no words for it. I did not think that this would ever go this far. Ready for this next one? All right, here we are. Over at the same site, Futurism. Expert warns that human beings are going to start getting hacked. What? We were talking about human beings being able to be hacked through the technology that is being, inserted into them by a certain thing that is very popular to go do right now. And we were called insane. But now they're just putting it out there. But the way that they word this is like, oh, just any people can just be hacked and this and that. No. No. You can't hack a human being. Are you crazy? You think any of us that didn't take whatever can be hacked? No. How would they even... No. I mean, technically with their, cognitive warfare program, they can manipulate and make you think certain things. Technically, they can hack you, sort of, but get a load of this. Hacked humans. Yuval Harari, a world-renowned social philosopher and the best-selling author of *Sapiens*, has a stark warning. We need to start regulating AI, because otherwise big companies are going to be able to hack humans. Harari believes that the rapidly increasing sophistication of AI could lead to a population of hacked humans, according to a report from CBS 60 Minutes. To deal with this issue, he's calling on the world's leaders to begin regulating AI and data collection efforts by large corporations. To hack a human being is to get to know that person better than they know themselves, he told the show, and based on that, to increasingly manipulate you. Dangerous data. At the heart of the issue is proliferation of tech companies whose business is gathering massive amounts of data about their users. Harari worries that people are increasingly ceding their personal lives to private entities that don't have their best interests at heart. Netflix tells us what to watch and Amazon tells us what to buy, he said on the program. Eventually, within 10 or 20, 30 years, such algorithms could also tell you what to study at college, and where to work and whom to marry and even whom to vote for. Do you see where the tyranny is coming into view? Do you see where this new world of theirs is coming into view, into reality right now? Harari urged nations to take the threat of powerful AI seriously, suggesting that clear and strict guardrails be put in place to ensure data isn't wielded to manipulate the public. Oh, that's exactly why this stuff is even being created in the first place, so there's no guardrails that are going to go up, my friend. And he probably knows that, so whatever. Certainly now we are at a point when we need global cooperation. You cannot regulate the explosive power of artificial intelligence on a national level. He added that data should never be concentrated in just one place, saying that's a recipe for a dictatorship. Oh, yeah, what are we doing? Scaring the people into accepting a world government. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. Again, this is another one of those problems that they created that they could say, no nation state could ever take this on their own. We need a world government. And when they finally do announce this world government, people are going to say that this is a new idea that we, the people, came up with in order to address the problems, and it hasn't been a plan for the whole however long they've been going at this. Literally where we are. It's a chilling and plausible outlook, especially now that some tech companies are looking to convince users to reject physical reality entirely and embrace a virtual one of its own making. Even so, come Lord Jesus. Oh my, this is unreal. Moving on. I'm not sure how much of this article I will get to read, because New York Times often says that to read anymore, you have to, sign. Oh, here it comes. It's going to, yep, there it is. Well, we don't even have to read it. I'm just going to say my piece on this, and then I'm going to move on to the next one. Am I still recording? Yeah. Remember when they started taking down the, quote, racist statues? And, people were like, oh, we only want to take down the racist statues. We don't want to take down all the statues. Like, we would never do that, especially any statues of our founding fathers. Well, New York Times, Jefferson statue will be removed from New York City council chambers. Thomas Jefferson. Yes, as in one of our founders, as in the, I can't even think about this. 1984, George Orwell wrote, when every book is burned, when every statue is destroyed, when every, I forget how exactly it's worded, but basically says that only then will people realize how important history was, or something like that. But yes, they're going along with this because they are actually erasing history. They removed Thomas Jefferson statue from New York City Council chambers. Next, it'll be George Washington. And then it'll be, oh, here and there, at this place, that place. And then all of a sudden, oh, we have to go and implode Mount Rushmore because those are just nothing but a bunch of old, crazy white people. The United States is being unraveled, destroyed from within, no question about it. They don't care one iota about you. They don't care about anybody else but themselves, and maybe not even that. A Thomas Jefferson statue. One of our founders who bravely fought the most oppressive government in the world at the time. Nope, we're just gonna go ahead and take it down, right? We will see more of this. Don't you even doubt it for 1 minute, and this makes me so mad. Because they've said for a while, people on whatever side, it doesn't matter, but mainly people on the ground, like people like us on the left side, are like, no, we don't want to get rid of that. We only want to get rid of the racism and this and that. No, you don't. See? This is how a nation is destroyed. You don't have a national identity. Not anymore, especially. We don't have a national identity. And stuff like this is only making it worse. Little by little, drop by drop, drop by drop, we will advance our goal. That is from the Sacred Covenant. Look for more of this in the future. Moving on. I'm a little late to the party on this one, but as they say, better late than never. So, Feds start biotech readiness test with non-toxic gas released in New York City parks and subways. The test will be conducted on 5 separate days between October 18th and 29th. That headline alone should terrify you to your core. They're just going to go around spraying what they say is non-toxic gas released in New York City parks and subways. Wouldn't be the first time that the federal government has experimented on their own citizens. The MTA says the Department of Homeland Security, working alongside a team of researchers and city agencies, will deploy a non-toxic gas on 5 separate days between October 18th and 29th at about 120 locations across the city. So this already done came and went, and like I said, I'm sorry I'm late to the party, but I'm sure they're still out there doing something. Most of the locations will be above ground, including some parks. The number of below ground subway stations will also be included, though details on which ones weren't known. Commuters can expect to see teams of researchers working at locations scattered across the city, both above and below ground. DHS said there will be a variety of sampling and sensor equipment locations across 5 boroughs. What are they? New York City's response plans for a chemical biological attack will be put to the test starting Monday as part of a federal preparedness study. Sounds like they're getting ready for something. Okay, we already seen these. Alright, here we go. The goal of these tests is to deliver actionable information to emergency preparedness planning authorities for potential wide area release of dangerous chemicals or biological materials. DHS. Wait. The goal of these. Look at the way this is worded. The goal of these tests is to deliver actionable information to emergency preparedness planning authorities for potential wide area release of dangerous chemicals or biological materials. They didn't say who would release them. Kind of seems like they would be the ones releasing this stuff. Weird. Strap hangers and anyone in the vicinity of testing operations are advised that the gas is non-toxic, poses no health risk to the public. Study simulates an aerosol release of a biological agent in the densely populated urban environment. The study will track movement of non-toxic material, and the results from these tests will be used to learn more about the relationship between airflow in street level and underground environments. You know what that kind of sounds like to me? Kind of sounds like when they go and they start actually, deploying on the ground, and they need to herd a large group of people in a city to a certain place to where they can, take control of the situation or the area. Sounds like they're going to use this harmful gas or whatever in these different locations so they can see, the test is so they could see like where it would go, what it would do, so when they do release the actual gas, then they would know where it would go, what it would do, and where the people would probably flock to. That's exactly what this is. Okay, I already read that part, and we read that part there. Lessons learned now will help refine and verify airflow and dispersion models that will inform response protocols and keep our citizens' critical infrastructure, including hospitals, police, and fire stations, and our transit systems, safe, Mitchell added. Come on. It's literally... So basically, they're just, openly conducting experiments now with, quote, non-toxic gas, according to them. So when they do release the actual gas, they'll know exactly where it's going to go and where people are going to flock to, so they can be there waiting with whatever they're going to be waiting for. This is military operation, the whole thing, with a bunch of sublet military operations within. People better wake up, man. I'm telling you, you better wake up right now. It's already too late. We're just trying to soften the blow at this point. Moving on. All right, here's a report that came out today. And this obviously is exactly the kind of thing that they do when they set up for a potential power outage, communication disruption, and looks like they already have their excuse. Huge solar flare erupts from the sun, may disrupt satellites and communication. Our sun erupted with a massive solar flare on Thursday morning, shooting out charged particles into space and directly towards Earth. NASA's Solar Dynamics Observatory, which monitors the sun on a constant basis, captured an image of the celestial event. Yeah, that's not composite at all. That's not computer generated at all. No way that that's even close to being real. You can tell. Look at the mesh textures. Anyone that knows anything about Photoshop knows that this is not real. Look at that. You could tell the mesh textures, and you could tell that it's different lighting. You could tell the position of it and just the way it is in general. And I can't zoom in. Oh yeah, I can. Not very good. Not a very good job on that one. Oh, thanks. Why is there always so many ads? This is so annoying. I hope this doesn't crash. Okay, the coronal mass ejection, which reaches peak at 11:35 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, on October 28th, is now hurtling towards Earth and is likely to cause a geomagnetic storm. It's expected to make its way to Earth by October 30th or 31st, right on time for Halloween festivities. Right on time for All Hallows Eve and All Hallows Day. Okay. Yeah, look at that. They can get that picture up there, right? But they have to have this one in crappy black and white and this video in crappy black and white, which they don't even tell you what this is. Like what it actually is. They say it's a solar flare, but I don't believe it. The flare caused a strong but temporary radio blackout across the entire continent of South America, which happens to be the central sunlit area of the planet at the time. Yeah, that's about right. Oh, look, and somebody else must have made this one, because that looks totally different. Oh, look, it even tells you it's a composite. Ha! goes 16 Suvi Composite 171 Angstroms 2021-1028. So it's computer generated. Literally just told you that. On the positive side of things, the eruption could potentially invigorate the northern lights for the weekend, putting on a spectacular show. And here's NASA's models and all this stuff, but okay, the downside is the possible interference with satellite-based communications. The storm will impact the highest levels of Earth's atmosphere, which could potentially increase drag on low-orbit spacecraft. Particles can also disrupt satellite orientation, which could then impact functionality on Earth. High-frequency communications like aviation, air-to-ground communications, and amateur radio are likely to be affected by the storm. Even services like GPS may be skewed or interrupted. So, they're just openly saying that they're going to jam communications and they're going to, pretty much make our life hell. And you best believe